I still can. See? And that would be truly helpful.
There's a word for it. It's kind of like a cross between bridging, between species and life, and interdependence.
I missed you.
And my name is Lynn, and we're here to promote health.
Darby, is your mic on? There it is. Hi. Hello, I'm Darby. And I was also going to say learn, was live and learn and grow, surrender. That's more than one word.
And I'm Diana, and adventure.
Adventure. So yeah, that's a good question. I can't wait to see how that interplays with your presentation. Be a miracle if it's in sync with what someone's miracle or ordinary. We have our miracles and ordinaries that we love to present. The ordinary, everyday thing that reminds us of why life is a miracle. Or the miraculous thing that just kind of shakes us up out of our ordinary day. I see Ernest.
Each week now, when I'm here, I come with props. So, along with the science of mind reading, which I liked so much because I did feel really stuck. And even 20 years ago, I was trying to decide how painting my career with my husband as a shaman, we were going to make painting something that I could get with. And we decided that we would use non toxic, low VOC paint. So, feeling stuck about being from Earth, but being on a planet called Plastica, which is my new passion. Actually, it's been a passion for a long time. So, last week I showed you all of the plastic in a big plastic bin that I was trying to recycle and move on or whatever. And so, every week now, I'm going to show you something different. Real quick, just for 2 minutes. This is a pottery mug that fits in my cup holder in my car that a friend of mine made me, and I take this to the coffee shop every day. And I bring my spoon and my fork with me now again. When I was in my 20s, I carried it all the time, and then I forgot about it. And now I'm doing it again. So these are tips rather than, like, oh, bad, using plastic. I showed you all the containers last week that we're all using. Now I can show you some things that you might want to get. This one's a thermoflask, and at my work, they still use plastic water bottles. So I just keep setting this on the desk as a hint that maybe people will pick up. Now, this one is related to my sis acquired no plastic at all this week. And off her, what is this called?
Label.
Label, but it's a, those wipes. Okay, so she opened it up, and inside she had cut little squares of fabric, and she put in all of her natural um, aromatherapy and antibacterial stuff. And she got in here and she opened it up and said, "Here, instead of these, let's use." What were you gonna say?
I said antibacterial stuff.
Stuff.
Soap and water.
But like some good smelling stuff too. And then last, so I don't take up too much of your time about my miracle that I'm discovering every day, is my roommate buys these boxes of soy milk every week or two. And so what he does is he puts all his garbage in there, and then he takes it to the dump instead of using plastic bags, and he just puts it in the recycling the. And so does Palmer, I see. And lastly, believe it or not, your phone is plastic and glass. And my thing I do about my phone is I just choose not to use it one day a week. I just put it down for almost like the entire part of the day. I turn it off. And in the land called Plastica.
Um, my name is John, and I would say, how far have we come? That's amazing. You just did. Uh, I'm reminded of a beach cleanup we did, and we found 8 Barbies and all this bizarre plastic stuff. Um, and so it is good to stay after that. And I just appreciate everyone's awareness about taking care of and alarming our community by being less consumers of plastic or utilizing plastics in different ways. Um, there is the county is looking at using plastic and improving it, using it in concrete. So we'll see what happens with that. And I was also going to say some of the work that I do with the county and the state. Everybody wants to work together to improve the world, which is really interesting. You know, and the process of helping people, whether they're homeless or, uh, you know, have dementia or they just need help and they're handicapped. A lot of different agencies. We had 42 different nonprofits that came together in one of the recent actions, and all the departments that were, well, I should say all the direct service ones like police, fire, EMTs, the mayor's office, the Department of Mental Health for the adult and child divisions, and that was just some of the government ones. There was all those other nonprofits, and since then there's been another 30 or 40 that have stepped up, and it's just I just think it's really neat because here's this opportunity for everyone to get together and now work together. Of course, they all speak different languages and have different cultures and things, so there's still some things they need to work through, but yeah, it kind of leaves me a little speechless. Pretty cool.
Thanks, John. It is a miracle when we as humans can work together to get a goal accomplished.
Okay, my miracle is about plastic, it's about Barbies, and about community. And so within the last 3 days, about Gani and I went to see the movie Barbie, and it's a lot deeper than you think it is. I went to the bathroom crying, had to compose myself. It's pretty deep. But anyway, a couple of days ago, Mary Levins shared about a fire that took a family's home and everything. And yesterday I went to a clothing exchange, Ghani's clothing exchange, and picked out the different sizes of the different people in the family and shoes and whatnot. And so today I went to Choice Mart to get water for my honey. And I'm looking in the back of my car, and there's these beautiful clothes that I need to get to the family. And behind me, a car pulls up and goes, "Hi, Barbie." And it's Gani. I'm like, oh my God. Because she had given me these very small Levi's for one of the teenage girls that's in this family. And then I went inside, and there's Rue. She was at the clothing exchange as well. And it's just all of these beautiful little intertwining miracles that just keep happening with plastic. HGTV is one of our favorite programs to watch. It's building, and they had one, Barbie's Dream House, and it was so beautiful color-wise, and it looked just like it's an actual house built for Barbie. Anyway, plastic, Barbie, and community, and that's it.
Well, thank you. We have a miracle Pomai.
I have a wonderful miracle. Um, A few weeks ago, I decided to take a leap of faith and sign up for a course that I have been wanting to take for the last 20 years. And I finally did it. And part of the assignment was to write down your future, what you want. And so I did. And one of the things I wrote down was that I found a sponsor or several sponsors to help me afford to keep my daughter in ballet. It's kind of expensive. And so I just wanted her to dance again because dance, and quote her, my passion. I gotta do it. So I thought, well, that's one thing I would like to include in my future. So I wrote that down and a few other things, and then I had my first. Um, it was a mastermind class in this group, and we did our mastermind. And she asked if anybody wanted to work with her directly, and I raised my hand right up, and she called on me. And so she worked with me, and I wasn't even thinking about the ballet or my daughter or any of that at the time. And then 2 days later, I get an email from the dance studio saying some amazing donor had made a donation to the dance studio for students or a student to take certain classes that were coming up, special ones that there's a dance, a really famous dancer that's going to be here on Thursday to teach the kids special things about ballet and about Panama, pantomime and character and that kind of thing. That's all part of the dance. And so I get this email and it says, you are invited to bring faith to the following classes. And then they explained there was an anonymous donor and the owner of the dance studio chose Faith to be the recipient. Just like 2 days after, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So we're in the middle of that. She just yesterday did a performance at the Life Care Center. They did a whole thing of like a mini version of the thing they did at the Kilu Theater. So it was really awesome. Anyway, I'm just loving life right now.
Yay. Thank you for sharing all those miracles and ordinaries. It's good to remind us that, we're all connected and those synchronicities just help keep us moving forward in faith and joy. I would now like to invite Chaz up to introduce Vinyana. Usually I would do that, but there was a special request by a special friend of our speaker, and she had so much enthusiasm. I'm like, oh, yeah, 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 you go, girl.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Chaz. I didn't know that we would be talking about plastic today. Didn't know we'd be talking plastic today. But what I want to say to you is that my friend Heather, nothing plastic about her. She is the real deal. And in this life, I am so fortunate to have this person as a mighty companion. And I say that because I see her living in the I don't know mind. She lives in curiosity. She lives in I don't know. She's the eternal student. And when she shares her wisdom, I know that she's applied that in her own life. I know that she never tells me something that she hasn't road tested. And so my miracle is that I'm so grateful to have friends like you and friends like Heather that I get to walk this path with and share what I learn and learn from what she's learned. So thanks for joining me today. And I want to welcome Viana Reynolds.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chaz. Chaz and I have a little inside joke. We sometimes high five each other and say 52, and everybody wants to know what that is. And well, we were doing a puzzle together one day, and it took us, we were so pleased with ourselves. It only took us 52 days. And we thought that was awesome because on the box it said 6 to 8 years. It was really, we are good. Okay. So if you ever want to feel good about yourself, just high five and say 52. All right. So I want to start with this is a storytelling event, and we get to tell little stories and big stories and important stories and silly stories and laugh together. And I just want to free us up a little bit to do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself while we're doing this thing. If you need to get up and get tea, there's cookies. If you want to walk around, there's a bathroom. Anything you need to do, please feel free. So, I want to start with the story of how I wrote my first song. I'm not a songwriter. Apparently, I am. So, that was a story, an old story. But about 6 months ago, I had my greatest fear going home for a wedding. If you've ever been home for a wedding and you're like 52 years old and you haven't always been authentic with your family, having grown up in a fundamental Christian home, Holy Rollers, Pentecostal, we were speaking in tongues and pounding Bibles and all sorts of fun stuff. That was my upbringing. And it wasn't okay not to agree with everything the pastor said. So I secretly did not get real with anyone for years. And I still don't like to be totally, totally authentic when I go home because I'm afraid I might break someone's heart. And my brother died of a broken heart when he was 34 for this very reason. It wasn't me that broke it, but I don't want to do that to anyone else. So that's the story. But I'm going home and I just am so afraid that after 52 years, I'm going to go home and somebody at this wedding is going to say, "Now, are you a Christian?" And I am, but I am so much more. But the people in my home foundation creation don't necessarily feel the same way. And so I wrote a little song about it, and it came to me in the middle of the night, like so many of my stories and song or things come in the middle of the night, and I have to jump up and write it down. And then in the morning, I was able to share this little poem I wrote with my mother to answer this question. And again, my mother is part of this family, and she cried and she said, "Oh, that's so beautiful." And she hasn't stopped telling everybody about this poem and now this song. Even the Mormon family and pastor comes over to visit her and she shares this song with them. So I'm going to share my little song with you about how I've learned to answer that question from here on. Oh, and I sang it myself. I did not hire a professional to sing my song because I wanted to give it away to the world. So the music, the instrumentals are for everyone. And you can write your own stanza and you can use the instrumental to add your own freedom. This is a song about freedom. And so it's out on YouTube if you want to just write your own verses. I give it away to you. It's open source song. These happen to be my initial verses. These are the ones that were medicine for me. I am Christian, I am Muslim, I am Hindu, I am Jew. I'm everything, I'm nothing, I'm me, I'm you. Oh, come on, won't you join me? Can't you feel it? Can't you see? We're so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. I'm Norwegian, I'm Italian, there is African in me. I'm a mix of all the races from a global family tree. More the same than we are different in our rich diversity. We're so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. I'm lawyer, I am mermaid, I am author, I am muse. I used to think my resume determined my value. But now I know I'm worthy beyond all pedigree. We're so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. I'm male and I'm female and a mix between the two. Of the 18 kinds of gender, I'm number 22. So let's all choose our pronouns and not be trapped by he or she. We're so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. I'm gorgeous and I'm ugly. I'm skinny and I'm fat. I
won't let Glamour magazine determine where I'm at. The meaning of true beauty lies in authenticity. We're so much
Wait.
more than labels. We're all here to be free. I'm gay and I'm straight and I'm omnisensual. I'm here to with everything I know. What makes it so important? We search humanity. We're so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. I'm physical, I'm spiritual, I'm wealthy, and I'm poor. Our future's a buffet of stories we've heard before. So let's all choose them wisely and rewrite our destiny. We're so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. We're all here to be free. Be free.
Sound like a mermaid. Thank you. Thanks. Verse is rewriting our stories to rewrite our destiny. And it was fun for me to rewrite that I'm both male and a female and a mix between the two of the 18 kinds of gender. I'm number 22 because it just frees me up to say, I'm all of it. We're all of it. And when I'm in that state of awareness of our unity and not that old story of separation, I really have a lot more freedom and a lot more fun and a lot more connection and a lot more intimacy, both with myself and why I'm here and with all of you. So, thank you. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear the words very well. We tried. All right. So, I'm going to put my glasses on, my sunglasses for a moment because the future is so bright. Whew! I have to tell you how it's going to go from here on. All right. So, I'm going to start with the storyteller's prayer. I have a wonderful storyteller friend who's a professional storyteller that I like to take classes from so that I can learn not only how to tell a story, better than I've ever learned before, but also how to tell it in a way that it can be heard at the other side. So, getting to know an audience, getting to know what they're wanting to hear, what they're needing to hear. And that is what the storyteller's prayer is about. It says, may all the words be spoken, be heard, and may all the words, I said it wrong. May all the words that need to be heard be spoken, and may all the words that need to be spoken be heard. So I'm going to tell you a dream I had when I first got to the island, and it happened 3 times. Normally, I don't pay much attention unless it happens more than once. So this is a dream where I'm in the future, and spinning from the ceiling in my kitchen is a ball of water. And it's like holding itself together in a ball, spinning on the ceiling, fresh water out of thin air. How is this even possible? I love this future. This future doesn't require pipes, it doesn't require sewage lines, it doesn't require anything. It's just a ball of fresh water anytime I want in any room in the house. And I just raise my glass and I drink my water. I turn off a little switch and it falls into my bathtub. It's amazing, this fresh water out of thin air. And so after the third time I watched this futuristic dream, I decided to ask my fairy godmother about it. And she said, oh, you need to talk to Victor Schauberger. Oh, but wait, he passed over. You've got to read the book about Victor Schauberger. Now, Victor Schauberger is a spiritual man from 100 years ago. He died in like the 60s or something. But his greatest talent was water. And he came to know water because he was a third generation warden in the Alps. He was a man of the forest. He was a knower of the forest. And third generation meant that his parents didn't let him go to school because they were afraid that what he had learned in the forest would be taught out of him. So he came to know water by being with it and sitting with it and watching how it flowed and what temperature it liked to be and where it wanted to flow and how it wanted to flow and when. And oh my goodness, he was a master at nature, a master at water. And what he learned from nature was that the more we mimicked it, the more we followed it, the more we honored it, the more it would help us create technologies that would not warm the planet, but would be incredibly efficient, incredibly silent, and incredibly effective. Little friction. And he knew how to spin water in ways that would create technology that could have so much power, it was incredible. He was using vortexes he had learned about in water to have UFOs flying just right into the sky with very little friction. And he was an inventor and he used water. He became famous because of the aqueducts he was able to build and use water in ways that nobody had ever done it before. What I loved about Victor Schauberger was that he listened so deeply to nature and he mimicked it so well and he knew it in his bones that water wanted to be a certain temperature when it came around this corner to lift the log to bring it down, that he didn't go against nature ever with any of his inventions. He only mimicked it. He borrowed what he learned from nature. And he predicted all those many years ago that if we did the opposite, if we started using forces in machinery that would create friction and heat, we would warm up our planet and we wouldn't be able to live here. So he said, I'm never doing that. I'm only making very wonderful, powerful machines that are based on biomimicry. I'm going to follow nature's ways, not go against them. So, the spiritual idea that we are so connected to nature, that we're so one with nature, that we can actually know how to create futuristic advances like water spinning on a ceiling. I quickly went to the internet and said, oh my goodness, I wonder if this exists. And there was an atmospheric water generator. You can buy them online at Amazon for $1,700. They don't spin from the ceiling yet, but we can get fresh water out of thin air just by cooling the air. Amazing. Droplets fall right out of the air into my cup. And so we have the first part. Now all we have to do is learn to spin it from the ceiling. And we're not far from doing that. So let me just say that. So I'm excited to share what I found in Victor's work was a new story, a story about listening so deeply and not being confused by the mental, formulas that say you can't do that, and listening so deeply to be informed by nature, to mimic nature, to go with nature, that not only can we stop global warming, but we can go to global cooling if we choose it. So that's why I had to put my glasses on, because the future is really bright for us if we will just start telling ourselves a new story. The other recent dream I had was about going underground in a future. This just happened 3 nights ago. I was in the future and it felt like we were really there. Bud was there too. He has this great green aura in the future. By the way, in the future, everybody can see auras, not just a few of us, but everybody can see auras. And Bud has, this is my husband, Bud. Thank you for supporting and being here today. He has this bright green, like huge mohawk of an aura, bright green, in case you didn't know. Anyways, so that'll be fun for those of us who don't usually see auras. It's coming. The other thing that we could do when we went underground, there's incredible advanced technology underground that went underground thousands of years ago. You may have heard the story of the Danu people in Ireland. This is historical, this is not a myth. There was this group of people that were very small in stature. Some people called them little people, but they landed on the shores of Ireland about 4,000 years ago. And they lived in Ireland peacefully and brilliantly, one with nature, seemingly magical powers, kind of like the ones I've been telling you about. And they were so happy for 100 years. And then suddenly, my ancestors, the invaders from Northern Europe, landed on the shores of Ireland and said, we're here. And what are you guys doing here? I think we're taking over. And oh no, the Danu people are peaceful. We don't do war. Why don't we just split Ireland? You take half, we'll take half, we'll get along perfectly. And the invaders said, that's a good idea, but we get to choose which half. And they said, okay, we don't care which half. You can choose which half. And so the deal was struck, and the Danu would honor it. And so the invaders decided that they would take the top half and that the Danu people had to go underground. They got the bottom half of Ireland. So they were never allowed to come out again from underground. They went into the caves, they went under trees, they built their homes inside the soils and the roots and the mycelium. They came to know the caves and the treasures of the earth. But more than that, they'd always been one with nature. They'd always been very technologically advanced. And so for 4,000 years, they've been down there creating this incredible world that most of us have never seen until Thursday night when I had a dream about it. And if you go there, it looks like we're just out here. We're underground, but it just looks like this because of the biomimicry and the self expression and the artistry. It is beautiful down there. And it's all about being able to fly and being able to have fun with each other. And nobody's going to work 9 to 5 down there, let me tell you. It's about water, it's about the air, it's about the sunlight coming through in these beautiful portals. It's about artist expression. It's so beautiful and technologically advanced. We have nothing to worry about. We just have to, like I did this morning, invite them to come back. So it was my ancestors who struck that clever deal that then we didn't get to know the little people, the Danu of Ireland. So I rang my little bell that my mother sent me. It's a little gnome bell. It's here somewhere. Where did I put my gnome bell? Oh, here it is. It's so small, it's hard to find. I rang. I went outside, put my feet on the ground this morning, rang my little gnome bell to call the fairies. And I broke the deal. And I told the Danu they could come back because it was my ancestors who made the deal. So I figured I could be the one to break it and tell them to come back. So rewriting our stories, the ancient stories of the past, why not, right? They're only bound to a contract that was created by my dead ancestors. So why not bring them back and let their technology be known to us again? So my mother's the one who introduced me to the little people chasing gnomes through the forest of the Pacific Northwest growing up, literally. And the other day, she took a picture of, she's in Montana now, she's 80, and she took a picture of a flower in her garden with a butterfly on it. And she looked at the picture when it came out and she said, "There's a gnome in this picture." She didn't see it until the picture came out. So we printed it. It hasn't been doctored in any way. And I brought it so that all of you can admire, if you can find the gnome in the picture that made itself available in her just snap and shoot photo, pass it around. Um, I also brought, yeah, there are gnomes, if we want to call them in, and fairies, and all the wonderful Danu people were historically real, and they still are. So I wanted to share the fairies. The fairies taught the dandelions how to grant wishes. If you ever wondered when you blew on a dandelion how it could fly and grant your amazing magical wishes, if you don't know how that happened, the fairies have been doing it for a long time, and they taught the dandelions how to do it. And if you ever wondered how to do it, you now can read the manual. It's called How to Grant Wishes, and I brought many copies over there. This was my first book that I'm self-publishing, and I brought several copies if you'd like some today. I also brought pictures of the pictures I take underwater. I just snap and shoot pictures underwater, and then I send them to my mother in Montana, and she puts beautiful cards and beautiful colors behind them and turns them into art. And so I brought several of those. She doesn't like me to sell them because she puts so much into them. So I bring them as a gift if you'd like to take one as a gift. And you can also make donation if you would prefer to take more than one. So that's what's over there. I also brought a stack of books. What informed my talk today, aside from these fun personal dreams and visions, I have several books that really, the Victor Schauberger book called Hidden Nature is here, and all of his inventions that we know of. And also the big book that really hit me for this particular inspirational talk is called Designing Regenerative Cultures, and it's by Daniel Wall. So I brought the books that inform me in case you want to know where some of these ideas came from. So let's start with for the last many millions of years, we have lived symbiotically here on this planet with nature. It's only been in the last several thousand years that we have gotten a little off track and we are paying the consequences now with a lot of suffering. Um, and a few thousand years ago, we changed our story. And the story that changed is now creating an existential crisis. We don't just get to come up with a new story because it's fun or because we have this utopian dream of how we could be different. It is now a prerequisite that we come up and reinvent ourselves, that we come up with a new story about humanity and who we are and why we're here. Because if we don't get to stay. We don't get to live here. The trajectory for humanity is we will go extinct pretty quickly if we don't change our ways. Well, how does a species change its way? Well, if I know humanity, we've been telling stories from the beginning, we'll be telling stories in the end, and it's stories that drive us because the stories that we come to believe as true are our beliefs. And those beliefs then create our reality because we perceive reality that way. We only see what we believe to be true. So we can either change our stories or we don't get to stick around much longer. The honeybees, for example, get to stick around pretty much unless they go with us. But if it weren't for the honeybees, we couldn't be on this planet. So it really is a honeybee planet. We're just lucky to be here. And that changes the center of the story. It's usually a human centered story. When we come up with the myths of religion, it's always God and human centered, but it's never bee centered, for example, or nature centered, typically, unless we're in an ancient culture that's so connected to the oneness of it all that they actually see the interconnection. So, drawing on ancient stories will help us, and creating new stories for the future will help us. We can either choose to live intentionally or unconsciously. But those are our only two choices. We either write our own stories and choose them consciously, or we continue to live out the old ones unconsciously. So we now have the inescapable opportunity to remember who and why we're here. Because none of this matters if we don't know why we want to save humanity. So, why is humanity worth saving? Now, stop for just a second and take about 10 seconds to close your eyes and drop into your reality of why you're here and what makes humanity worth saving. It's so easy to find fault in humanity as it runs rampant with self interest, voraciously eating up the planet for its own insatiable pleasure. Well, what if we're just a young species? What if we're just adolescent, like a caterpillar phase, eating everything in its path so that one day it can become a mature butterfly? Or like a water nymph eating everything in the water until it crawls out one day and takes flight as a dragonfly. Or like an ugly duckling who one day matures into a swan. What if humanity is just in the initial stages of becoming and just about to spread its wings as it fully matures, honoring its place on the planet as Homo sapiens sapien, the wise human? We gave ourselves the name wise and certainly have a few wise people, but we don't see much of it, and we haven't really lived up to it as a group, nor do we honor it with the people we choose for our leadership. Wisdom is not usually on the campaign slogan. Uh, but what if we're here to play more than work and know how to find the resources we need on the land and we share peacefully with others? And what if we're excited to see what our potential may bring? So we support each other to unveil our human gifts, our talents, our innovations, as if we're emerging to be something magnificent. And in anticipation of something we've never even seen before, this is where my adventure comes in. If we are the elders, writing humanity's rite of passage from its immaturity, its adolescent stage, into its mature, celebrating its magnificent stage, then let's inspire each other with a diverse set of stories that we all bring, why we're here, why we matter, why humanity fits into this bigger picture. If we collectively can do that, then we can transform our values and our relationship to the whole of creation. So, my answer to why humanity is worth saving. If we look at the best of humanity, our altruism, our capacity for appreciating beauty and creating beauty, and our potential wisdom and care for the world around us, as well as our insatiable curiosity, Momi loves curiosity, to discover new technologies and invent new things, make us the wise human. And it definitely is worth saving in that worldview. Now, this is not a top down, one size fits all answer or approach. Resilience, I believe, comes from diversity, localized diversity to the place where we're grounded, the stories of the place where we're grounded, the stories where we came up, where we're rooted, and we can transform each diverse kind of mini cultures taking on their own adventures and experiences. We can transform our culture by embracing new and ancient stories that shift humanity's future to dancing. Dancing is our greatest potential in regenerative communities. Pomokai is a dancing queen, and her daughter, Faith. The passion of dancing. Imagine that humanity's dancing. So the good news is it's fun. We can laugh at ourselves, we can be uplifted, we can create novel and innovative ways to tell stories of humanity. We can write comedies, my personal favorite, or we can write tragedies, a great way to learn, and we can use music. Darby was playing music, and while she was, I wrote something. It is music is the wings on which words can fly and gently land in the heart. And that was what Darby's music lifted me to remember is yes, I can write a poem, but if I put it to music, not only will I remember it in the morning when I'm taking a shower, but I will also be able to share it in a way that touches emotionally from our head to our heart. So the good news is we get to write the new stories and borrow from the ancient past, the stories that make sense to us. We I brought a little demonstration of how this might be possible, and I have a handout for everyone so you don't have to be able to see the board. This is borrowed from the author Daniel Wall, and it's called Three Horizons. And he quotes it from a company called IFF, which I think is a nonprofit. It's all in the book. All right. So the first horizon. So I can feel overwhelmed sometimes if I'm trying to figure out how do I rewrite my life, my personal life, my community, and the world stories in such a way that we'll get the results we're looking for. So first we have to figure out what results are we looking for. The first horizon, horizon number 1, if you look at the handout, there's a chart and it has horizon 1 is the world in crisis. Horizon 2 is a world in transition. And Horizon 3 is the regenerative world that I'm interested in creating with other people who are interested in creating regenerative culture. All right. And eventually we'll talk about the stories that can get us there. But if I said to you, here's where we are, Horizon 1 in the time zone, this is now. So this is where we are right now. And we're moving forward in time. We've got a lot of Horizon 1 and very little of the values of Horizon 3 right now. The regenerative values, I've never heard anybody talk about plastic before in a stage like this. This is the first time I've heard somebody, so it's happening, but it's small. And maybe someday that talk will actually, the plastic talk, may be actually Horizon 2, because there may not need to be plastic in the future. So if Horizon 2 is the plastic conversation, we won't need that conversation in a regenerative culture because we won't create it in the first place, something that can't be decomposed or mimicking the biology of our planet. So, Horizon 1, I wrote a bunch of qualities and stories that are underlying what Horizon 1 is that our big culture is really embracing right now. And the big story is that we don't belong and that we're unworthy. The separation story that we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because we're bad. And so we don't think we belong or we don't think we're worthy as humans. We also have, I'm looking at the chart now, unbridled consumption. I love to go to Ross and just buy everything I can afford and put it all in my cart. So I have to like bridle if I want to be here in the future. And then another feature of this Horizon 1 that we're in right now is scarcity. The story, there's not enough. And then there's stinginess that comes out of that, and people who want to take and hoard and greed that comes out of that story. And then there's an achievement that I can do. My resume makes me feel valuable. If I can achieve in life, that makes me valuable. And then survival of the fittest, competition. We've got it's a dog eat dog world, and that's just how it is. And then there's the win lose game. If I win, and I'm a lawyer by training, and I'm trained to go in and win at all costs, and somebody else has to lose. And that's the fun of the competition of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't create a future that I want to live into. And then isolation and extreme individualism, we're finding that now is causing a lot of mental illness in our society because we feel, especially during COVID, that whole story of it's scary to be around other people and the world is dangerous. And so it goes on for pages, right? And then I give you a whole bunch of blanks in case you feel like writing in your own stories that you're living out or that you see that I haven't noticed. And you get to write on here as well, because that's Horizon 1. That's where we are. That's what is. And if we stay focused there and don't change the story that created those realities and beliefs and values, we will continue to annihilate ourselves on this planet. But if we can create values that will actually take us to a viable symbiotic planet, then we go to H3. And H3 is horizon number 3. We belong to nature, symbiotic stewardship. We are valuable just intrinsically, spiritually. We give and receive. We don't just take all the time. There's abundance and gratitude, an attitude of gratitude and generosity and contribution and fulfillment and love and intimacy and collaboration and win 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 for everyone, community, relationship, and the list goes on. Now, these are just things that I came up with, these ideas of what do I want in my future? How do I want humanity to come along with me into the future? What would be fun for me in a community in the future? And those are the qualities that I call a regenerative world, one that actually sees itself as giving back so that it can give back, so that it can give back, so that it can give back, regenerating. I'll give you an example. I was afraid of bees when I landed on this beautiful island. Honeybees freaked me out because my grandmother was afraid of bees. And then some fell into my pool. Well, I can't let it drown. So in the beginning, I just, kind of got it out. Did I tell you this story before, my honeybee story? Well, now I put my hand under it, lift it out, and I watch it for 20 minutes as it gets all cleaned off and gets all dry and it gets all excited about flying again and it's preening and pruning and, doing all of its thing. But then it's too tired to fly because it's been swimming around in my pool for an hour. So I bring it a little honey on this other finger and I let it lick the honey off my finger. Well, now it's really happy and it gets so excited and it's all jeered. It's going to go fly. Ah! And it's just so happy that I did that. And you know what? Bees have facial recognition. So bees know who I am. And I have been giving back to the bees the honey that they've been giving me my whole life. And there's nothing quite as intimate as having a honeybee lick honey off your finger. So I recommend it to all beings. Um, the point of this list and the lots of blanks in the list is for all of us. I just made this up this week, this whole list thing. So feel free to fill in what matters to you. Now, the fun part about the list is not only that we don't have to give up everything in Horizon 1. You'll see there's a little bit of Horizon 1 left down here. There's some wisdom in what we're doing right now, and we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We're going to honor some of those competition things and some of those things that we think are win-win or win-lose or whatever. So it's not that whole Horizon 1 is going out the window. It's just that Horizon 3 is way more fun for the future. And so I recommend that we start to build it. And what happens here is that if we didn't have Horizon 2, the middle ground, the lights would go out immediately because I'd say, "Oh, electricity based on gas, got to turn it off, completely off." Well, Horizon 2 says we got to keep the lights on, so let's do solar. Well, solar is not a long term answer. It is based on petroleum products. So it's the best H2 answer we got at the moment. And that's okay. We don't have to fight about whether it's the ultimate answer. Getting rid of all plastic might be a Horizon 3 thing. But right now we're at H2. And that's perfect because we just need to borrow H2 to get us through to where these two flip. And that makes me feel like this is doable. So every day, as I put my things, my choices, what I eat, where I live, the clothes I buy, whether I go to Ross or whether I go to a local farmer's market or whether I use plastic in a certain way or not, that is the decision I'm making at every turn. So now I can ask myself, okay, is solar panel the future or is it just getting me by to keep the lights on? And then I can make a decision about that. And so, if we can identify as a culture and as individuals, when I choose where I have breakfast in the morning, is it McDonald's or is it Cafe Florian? It's the local Cafe Florian because it's local and it keeps the circular economy going. It's regenerative. I know them by name. I know where they got their food. I know that the eggs are rage free. So, to know where we get our food and to know how connected we are to everything we eat and to who we like to play with and who we share our wealth with, that is Horizon 3. And that's what makes the future possible in my mind because I like to see it pictorially in graphs. And then every day as I make my decisions or policies, if I'm a policymaker, I can ask myself, is solar. Is solar the way to go? If I had $30 million, I'd put solar on every house in Hawaii and we'd all go off the grid. But that's just an H2 move, and that's fine. And then next, we won't need it because we'll all be creating our own electricity in some other way that doesn't require petroleum products. Because we don't need to borrow the sunlight that's under the earth for millions of years and just down there it's going to run out. But this sunlight doesn't run out, at least not for a long time. So that's the sunlight I want to be using. That's regenerative. That's where some power can come from, and certainly from other places that we're going to borrow from the fairies because they figured it all out by now. So that is what I'm offering is the idea. And then the only way I can remember, my memory is terrible. You'll notice all my children's books rhyme. There's a reason. I can't remember the poem if it doesn't rhyme. So what I have to do to remember wisdom is I have to tell myself a story. And if I don't have a story to go with it, I can't remember it. It's like Jesus spoke in parables for a reason. We can't remember anything he said that wasn't a parable. And that's why the Bible is full of parables, because nobody remembers the other stuff he probably said. So I have to do that for myself. So when you see, for example, the chronic fear of the old horizon one is going to become compassion and care. Well, in the middle, we'll just stop doing harm. We'll stop hurting things. But here we'll actually get wanting to care and be compassionate. Malama, the Aina, for example. And the story that I remember for that is Kuan Yin. And if you don't know the story of Kuan Yin, she's the goddess of compassion. And she has 1,000 stories of 1,000 lifetimes that help me remember what it looks like to have compassion. Then there's the Iroquois nation that gave us our government, the story of the balance of power and how America set up its structure of government was based on the Iroquois nation. And it's brilliant. We just left out a really important piece when we took it and borrowed it for our own country. For the structure of our country to really work, it should be a matrilineal society in which the Senate is made up of 50 grandmothers. There's a big difference between 50 grandmothers having the control of the Senate than what we have right now. So that's the Iroquois nation. There's another really big story my mom told me, and there's a really close family member. This is big. And my whole life, I was raised in the church where we expected Jesus to come back at the end times. The whole world would go to hell in a handbasket, as my grandma would say. And if we were lucky enough, and if we were good enough, and if Jesus loved us enough, he would take us away before everybody else was perishing in the big fire of the apocalypse. So that worldview changes how we feel about the planet. I noticed it's like, why bother? It's all going to hell in a hand. So my mom calls me and tells me there's this new book out in the Christian community called Raptureless. And it says biblically, that's wrong. Made that up. It's not biblical. And therefore, the world isn't going through an apocalypse in the future. Biblically, it will be better and better, and the future is bright. So let's all put our sunglasses on. So my family is somehow changing 180 with one book, which I brought, Raptureless, for changing the Christian narrative like 180 degrees. Like it changes everything. She was so excited when she called me. She said, "Oh my gosh, this means we can recycle plastic now." You know, like it matters. Before it didn't matter. There was nothing to do about it. We were all just gonna explode anyway. So the narratives we tell ourselves, and this is not just one little cult, you know, this is like a huge part of our nation that believes the apocalypse is coming. And so if we go with that story, we will end up with an apocalyptic event. Absolutely. But if we change the story to one that actually needs sunglasses, we can actually get to a really bright place. And I see that I've run out of time. So thank you so much. And my invitation to you is to use this kind of thinking about what stories are you telling yourself? What stories do you want to be telling yourself? Figure out where they fit on the three horizons, and then start telling yourself stories that really work for the future you want to create. And it doesn't have to be the same as mine. I gave some personal examples in the handout about octopus and dolphins and all sorts of fun stuff. But you may have your own things that you want to really get more intentional about when you have your conversation with yourself about why you're here, why we're worth saving as a species, and how we might fit in to the planet in a way that really gets you excited about your future. Thank you for being here. I'm happy to take questions and yeah, a couple questions and or if there's a story that just wanted to be shared as part of this. Yes. Hi. You too. Yes. Mm. 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 Mhm. Mm. 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 Mm.
Well, thank you, Annette. Was there any other questions?
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. 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 Thank you. Mhm. Thank you for that question. I think asking questions is a big answer for the future and not pretending we have all the answers. But I did write one more verse to my song recently about this issue for myself. And it was Republicans and Democrats gerrymander all the time. I refuse to be divided along a party line. So let's discuss the issues with respect and dignity. There's so much more than labels. We're all here to be free. So for me, I know the bigger story is that we are being divided on purpose. And I won't let it happen. I won't let it happen in my family. Lots of Trumpers in my family. I won't let it happen. I love them to death. And I say, Mom, you want to send me Trump stuff? You send me Trump stuff. I love you so much. I love you that much. and I won't be divided.
I think that's a great answer.
Thank you. Yeah.
I,
Yes. Yes.
and I
Yes.
think that's
Diversity.
a huge, huge answer to one of our bigger problems is to recognize how someone tells us they love us. And so long as it isn't directly hurting us, how do we accept that?
Mm,
How do we accept the way someone tells us they love us?
beautiful.
And being open and aware to learn how someone else will best receive your love. You know, like um my husband knows to tell me he loves me is to have a cup of coffee ready in the morning. And when I wake up and that cup of coffee is on the table, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he loves me so much. And likewise for him, you know,
Mm,
there's don't leave hair in the comb on the counter. And, you know, like if he comes home and he doesn't see that and he's like, oh my gosh, she really loves me. She cleaned the hair out of the comb and out of the drain.
yes.
Because that's really, I know that's going to bug him. And it doesn't bug me, but that little thing. And it's the same, you know, my mom loves to give me ideas and suggestions. And well, it's just a thought. And I find myself as a mother doing it myself, but being open to being like, yeah, mom, you love me enough to want to reach out and connect with me. Thankfully, much we're on the same political lines, but I have friends who have completely different political, spiritual viewpoints, and they want to share with me. And I accept it because I'm like, wow, thank you for letting me know you care.
Mhm.
You care enough about me to share something. And I think that's a huge value. You're like, Mom, yeah, I love you so much. Share with me your passions,
Yeah.
share with me your convictions.
And it reminds me of one of my favorite stories of all time is short, and it's an elephant, and there's eight blind men, and they're all touching the elephant in different places saying, what is this? I can't see it. What is this? And somebody's got the leg and he's like, it's a tree, it's a tree. Somebody's got the tail, it's a big old snake or paintbrush or something. And somebody's got the nose, oh no, it's a boa constrictor. And somebody's got the ear, it's a pancake. Somebody's got another side, he's a huge wall. And they get together and they realize it's an elephant. I have to remember that I'm blind and that I need all of you to help me to begin to see. They didn't see the whole elephant, they only got a piece of it as eight blind people. But they were so limited, and we're so limited. If I can remember the humility of being limited in my perception, then I can really value what is the truth that my mother sees in the Trump conversation. I want to know because I'm missing a piece, I'm missing something. So thank you for that question. Huge. Are we out of time?
Yeah. And I'd like,
Yes. Yes. Mm. No, I haven't. There were campfires here before us about the Iroquois Nation. Thank you. Mm. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, that's why it was
And
spinning. It likes to spin. Yeah.
and
Thank
Darby,
you.
do you have a song to offer us as we offer our koa bowl?
So the offering bowl is going around to honor this beautiful place that we have the privilege of, this New Thought Center of Hawaii. So those who are grateful that we have a place to meet and beautiful chairs to sit in and wonderful music, please feel free to give.
Imalama ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama pono ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama pono ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama pono ikahea. Earth and sky, sea and stone, we hold this land in sacredness. Earth and sky, sea and stone, we hold this land in sacredness. Earth and sky, sea and stone, we hold this land in sacredness. Imalama ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama pono ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama ikahea, Imalama pono ikahea. Earth and sky, sea and stone, we hold this land in sacredness. Earth and sky, sea and stone, we hold this land in sacredness. We hold this land in sacredness. We hold this land in sacredness.
Okay, thank you so much, Darby, and thank you for your presentation. Um, we have coming up at New Thought Center of Hawaii the next 3 Sundays, Manuel Roberto. He'll be back with Bernice, his wife, and they're going to be playing music too. And then August 6th, Non-Duality, Your Birthless, Deathless Nature by Babaji Bob Kindler. On the 13th, Dr. Susan Gregg, Our Inner Dialogue Creates Our Reality is Yours, Creating What You Want with Music by Vovoda. Every Sunday, we're here at 10 a.m. Free childcare. Please register and make a reservation by Friday so that our childcare person knows to be here. We have some special events coming up. On the 29th is a free meditation class by Catherine Miller, and that's 10:30 to 11:30 in the Honua room. On Saturday, August 12th, with yours truly, basics of Lomi Lomi for self and family. That's 1:30 to 4. It's a $15 suggested donation. We have weekly classes of Qigong with Jinan Wang, and that's Mondays from 4:30 to 5:30. The end of the month, we have our produce giveaway and our potluck. And the second Sunday of the month, we have our crystal bowl meditations. And if you have any desire to service your community, we are always looking for greeters and help setting up and breaking down and getting ready for our potlucks and all that fun stuff. If you haven't received our newsletter yet, please sign up and we will put one in your email box. And with that, I'd like to invite us to sing our closing song.